All right, everybody loves doing real estate deals, but nobody wants to manage them. This is Jeremiah with Patriot Holdings. This is a lesson I've learned for 20 years being in real estate. We manage over $500 million of real estate. Everyone's a deal junkie, right? Everyone that loves real estate loves to do the deal. Nobody wants to operate the asset. And the gap is really between buying and operating. This is where most real estate investors, especially in commercial real estate, lose money and they didn't even know or don't even know they're losing. So I'm watching well-capitalized groups, investors with cash that have strong deal flow, but they completely blow up the other end of the deal. They got a good thesis, they're hungry, they hustle, it's a smart buy, but they couldn't execute after the close. And trust me, I've been there. I'm not saying that I'm better than this. This is just what I've learned and how important operations is in order to execute and maximize value and returns. And seeing some of the best investors in the industry, I mean, this is the attribute that separates the goods from the greats or even the bads from the goods, because this is what endures. Everybody looks like a genius real estate investor when markets are great, but when the market turns, like it has in 25 and 2026, then the poor operators are exposed. That's where when the tide goes out, you see whose pants are down. And that's what happens in real estate when you don't have operations dialed in. By the end of this video, you're going to understand what operations are required to spot the best real estate operators or real estate partners that can execute before you commit a dollar to the investment. All right, so it's contrarian to what I used to believe, but finding the deal is actually the easy part. When I started, I thought finding the deal was the hardest part. And it's pretty freaking hard to find a great deal. But the real hard part happens after you own it. I learned that early watching from a mentor of mine that I started in the business in manufactured housing and helping him build his fund. The second you take over the properties, the second everything can go wrong. Sometimes that's the case, sometimes not. But tenant issues, fires, floods, violations, zoning departments on you, fire departments on you. There's a lot of attention it requires day to day to execute on any type of property management. And I quickly realized that you can't scale. You can't scale a real estate investment business without an outstanding team around you. And novice investors, they look at real estate and they think it's passive. And that's the biggest myth there is out there. I don't care if it's a triple net investment and you're just taking a check and depositing it in the bank. There's still oversight in asset management. That tenant will start turn over. They'll have to renew their lease. They may need some tenant improvements. So no matter how passive it looks, there's still someone that needs to manage the asset and drive it just like a good business needs to be operated. Now, there might be less moving parts, but someone needs to be accountable, knowledgeable, and incentivized to maximize value. And I think where this shows up, it's human nature. Like the deal finders, the entrepreneurs, the investors, they're the hunters. They're going to go out and want to hunt. But the people that manage are the farmers. They're the people that are cultivating the crop, watching it, watering it, hoeing it, making sure it's nice, perfectly clean and organized. And most operators, they don't want to build the systems. They don't want to invest in the time. They don't want to invest in the people. They don't want to be patient. And they just keep moving on to the next thing. And I did that back in 2016 to 2018. I was so focused on buying more mobile home park deals and starting to get into storage that my operations went haywire. And luckily, I owned the portfolio myself so I could have those learning pains and understand the complexity of management and the power of good people in management. That was a hard lesson to learn. I sold those assets. They were a portfolio in Las Vegas that I sold too early. But because my return on equity, the amount of money I had in the deal, was only yielding me 2 or 3% because of all the inefficiencies of the management, I sold the asset, unlocked the equity, and moved on. It gave me an opportunity to rebuild the company, but I left a lot of money on the table. If operations were maximized, I could have 2 or 3x'd the return that I got on that investment, which is significant because I worked very hard to get that return that I did on that portfolio. And that just comes from operations. No more deal finding, no starting over, no needing to source it, negotiate, financing. It's just the operations. So aligning myself with people that are farmers where they love management, they love organization. They don't care if it's glamorous. They are putting the work in, day out, and they love the scoring of it, like constantly looking at the metrics. What I relate good managers to is like a lineman. In American football, you have the the offensive line that protects the quarterback. Nobody gives them any credit, yet they're probably the most important person on the field because if the quarterback gets tackled every day, then you can never score any points. But everyone expects the linemen to just do their job, and they only acknowledge them when they make a mistake, and they call that out and criticize them. Well, that's management. It takes thick skin where it's expected that you're going to collect on time, that you're going to look at the asset and make sure the improvements and repairs are done, that your reports are done on time, that all the licenses and permits and the compliance with the tenant regulations is being completed. It's easy to be critical of that, and yet it's a hard job to keep it all together. And that's what it takes. That's what the great investors, the great sponsors, that is what they invest in, is that type of team that's going to be the lineman, protect the asset, and allow for the investors to get those returns that they're looking for because they do the dirty work. All right, so what does operations look like? On a commercial real estate asset, let's say a typical Tuesday, you're running a 40-tenant industrial small bay building. I mean, first, great managers, they're fanatical about their numbers, their scorecards. They'll go, we use a system called Rent Manager. They have a dashboard. They look in there, who's paying, who's delinquent, who has a violation, and then getting out there and communicating with that team. And then the asset manager is communicating with the property manager and the maintenance team to talk to the tenants or to work on those work orders that are outstanding. Any active projects that are there, they're focusing on them so they can move the ball up the field to execute on the business plan. And that's expected, where there's going to be fires, literal fires. There's going to be sewer backups. There's going to be roof leaks. There's going to be old cars and debris and violence on the property. Who knows what there's going to be? Those need to be handled. But at the same time is communicating with the tenants, scorecarding the asset, making sure the property manager and maintenance guy is doing their job, doing their inspections, their checklists. That's the unsung glory that these people have to put into every day. So for me, I understand great managers are consistent. They hold people accountable, their team. They hold their tenants accountable. They stay focused and they stay on track day in, day out. Like Cal Ripken, the famous American baseball player that had the most consecutive games started in a row, they just show up every day ready to play. They don't get the praise. They don't get the acknowledgement unless they only get that acknowledgement when they do something wrong. But they are the unsung, unspoken hero. So why does it matter all about this management? Well, I'm talking about it because this is the thing to focus on when investing with a partner, with a sponsor, with a fund, or investing yourself in commercial real estate. Because ultimately, it's a piece that people think they can just outsource, but it can't. Like real investors and operators, they make this expensive mistake that someone else is just going to manage it for them and they don't have to look at it. And that's false. The biggest and best investors, even if it's their own family office, they have a team. They have an asset manager as number one, and that's looking at the budget versus the forecast. And then what are the actual numbers that measure up to those? They have strong leasing brokers, or the asset manager does at least. The asset manager has a good property manager, either a third-party firm that you can outsource, which is okay, or on-site, and they're managing the property manager themselves. They also have some type of general maintenance staff that needs to be there either on-site or contracted whenever there's an issue, and also a general contractor if there's ever any big issues or concerns or demos on the property. It's essential. This team balances it out. And it's boring, but this is what's necessary to have all the pieces of the puzzle together to actually make money and operate real estate in a way that's not reactive, it's proactive, and it drives returns. The other thing that I don't think should be outsourced is accounting and finance. Now, I'm not saying that the property accounting needs to be always done in-house, but the asset manager needs to work with the bookkeeping and accounting team, or they're helping with that. And it's critical. I mean, I myself, early on as an investor, I lost a big group of investors because my reporting wasn't clear enough. It wasn't timely enough. It wasn't up to the standard that investors want if they're going to passively invest. And because of that, they walked away. And now I understand the importance of reporting because that is the scorecard if you're making money or not. And without it, you don't have visibility. So to be clear, there's no outsourcing asset management. There's no outsourcing the accounting function or the reporting on it. But not to beat a dead horse, but on-site property management in some way, shape, or form is critical. If you're looking to invest in property or you're investing with someone that is investing in property, ask them if they have property managers on site. Now, they don't need to be there full time, but there needs to be eyes and ears on a property. This is critical. This is like having a business that no one shows up to. And yes, there is ways to do remote management, but there's still a maintenance component. There's still an on-site component of asset managers checking on the asset. There has to be cameras. There has to be eyes and ears. There has to be someone dedicated that's responsible for it to handle all of these issues. I've seen it time and time again. And it's the biggest mistake, especially in industrial or retail real estate. There's no line item for payroll at all. So it's just expected that these properties are gonna be smooth sailing all the way through. And that's an important line item to have in there, because until something goes wrong, you didn't really know you needed that person. And because they weren't there, things can get out of hand. A fire, a flood, an tenant eviction issue, certain people doing shady things on the property. And that's the importance of an on-site. So I'll get off my soapbox and move on. So from all that being said, the lesson that I learned from the very beginning is the sooner as a real estate investor you can hire an asset manager, if you're running your own properties, the better. Unless you're going to do it yourself. And I did it myself in the beginning for 10 plus years. That dedicated person is so critical to your team. Now let's talk operational timelines. Anyone that tells you that they're going to turn a property around in 12 months in commercial real estate is pretty delusional. And I've made this mistake. I don't mean it to be harsh, but I've seen it destroy investor returns, expecting you can do too much in too short of a period of time. Commercial real estate in general, is slow money. It takes at least 36 months to buy an asset, to improve it, to get permits, to raise the rents, to remarket and brand the property, and maximize value. And that's fast. And I mean, permits alone can take a year, just that, or a tenant getting some free rent, or marketing the property and a broker bringing you a tenant, negotiating the lease and having to do the build outs. That can take another 6 months. So it can be 18 months before you actually have income coming in on a retail or an office or a warehouse tenant. So keep this in mind. If someone says it's going to be a quick flip and there's any complexity at all to the real estate deal, they may be very inexperienced or they're not realistic on their expectations. They're completely miscalculating how long it really takes to convert or stabilize a commercial real estate asset into a well-performing property. The time value of money is extremely important, especially to my investors. The longer the clock rolls, the less average return the investor gets when you have a 5-year timeline on an asset. So those delays are costly, and it's important to have the right expectations in any asset you invest in. So what does successful property management look like? I know this isn't fun. It's a little boring, but all of the work is done before post-close. So success starts before you even get the tenant, 90 days before. You're doing tenant interviews. You're making sure the market rents you understand and that the expectations can be met. And you've identified all the competition so you know this is the amount of rent I can charge. You have a maintenance team. They're ready to go. Before you close, you're not running around scurrying to hire people. You have an asset manager. You have a defined business plan and a budget that works with a property manager or a property management company. All of this is done. You act like you own it before you even own it. That way, when you close, you hit the ground running. And then when you do close, try to show the tenant some appreciation. We're starting to give lunch cards or gift cards and make a friendly introduction. Go to each of the tenants, make the phone call, say hello, get to know who they are and why they like or dislike the space. That's what great operators do. And the real question that no one tells you about in the underwriting is, did you collect the rent the first month? Believe it or not, that's got to be the good start, is dialing in, collecting the money and making sure it's efficient so that there's no confusion to get that money coming in, month out, and that gets the ground running to be successful on the real estate investment. So another important piece to a great operator, a great manager, is going to be scorecarding. I say this again and again. I'm fanatical about it, is that they know their key numbers and they check those numbers consistently. So anytime you're vetting a manager, number one, you want to see what's their team. Make sure they have a strong team. They have different people in the right seats, right people in accounting and finance, the right maintenance, the right project management, the right asset management, the right property management. Look at the websites, look at how they operate their properties, look at the customer experience, that whoever's going to be occupying the place knows it's a legitimate business, it's easy to get a hold of the manager, and that they're treated with respect. And then secondly, it's going to be, what are the scorecards? Like, let me see how you score a property month in, month out. It's bigger than just the profit and loss statement. There's different rent management reports, delinquency, collections, there's outstanding balances, violations. You want to know, what are these reports? And then as long as they are very clear on presenting them to you and how they score the asset, then you can be confident that they're going to be on top of taking the actions daily that it's going to take, and that their eyes on the ball and they're not looking at just buying the next deal, and they're actually focusing on the asset at hand and driving performance. So if any of this resonates with you, or you want to talk shop, the nitty gritty details of commercial real estate investing, then comment below. Get on our Patriot Deal Room. It's where I go over deals, I go over trends, I go over what to do, what not to do, the lessons I've learned, and it's the nitty gritty of commercial real estate investing. So comment below. I'd love to talk to you in person.